Hello everyone, my name is Manan and I'm going to explain the problem Mahasena that is available on CodeChef to you. The problem code is AMR15A and I'm Manan to explain you this problem. This video can be divided into 4 parts: overview of the problem, explanation of the problem, solution in both Python and C++. However, after listening to the explanation in section 2, I think you can code it in any language you know. In the fourth one, I'm going to take you through the common mistakes beginners make or coders make while solving this problem or any problem in general. So, the first thing which you should know before solving the problem or going in the video further is input processing and basic maths. These are the prerequisites of this problem, so you should know them. This is the problem link if you want to go and see the problem first, which I usually recommend you to do. The first step is overview, and in the overview we're gonna look at the problem statement. You should read the problem statement very carefully because it contains all the information from what you have as the input and what you have to give as the output and what you have to process. So the first now there's some sort of an observation you can make is that the first paragraph or this 3 lines is like it's just the these statements which do not make any sense with the question or with what your output should be, so you can skip that if you are in a hurry. However, you can kind of read through all the problem statement also. So let's read it together. First of all, Katappa, as you all know, was one of the greatest warriors of his time. The kingdom of Maheshmati had never lost a battle under him, and the reason for that was their really powerful army, also called as Mahasena. Katappa was known to be a very superstitious person. He believed that a soldier is lucky if the soldier is having an even number of weapons and unlucky otherwise. This is the first piece of information that you have in the first sentence of the second paragraph. The information is that a soldier is considered lucky if the soldier has even number of weapons, that is, let's say 2, 4 or 6, and unlucky otherwise. Okay, that means if the soldier has odd number of weapons, then he's considered unlucky. He considered the army as ready for battle if the count of lucky soldiers is strictly greater than the count of unlucky soldiers, and not ready otherwise. This is the second line, and this gives the second piece of information, that if the number of soldiers having even number or the number of lucky soldiers is more than the number of unlucky soldiers, then the army is ready for battle. Now what you need to give output is on the next paragraph. Given the number of weapons each soldier is holding, your task is to determine whether the army formed by all these soldiers is ready for battle or not ready. Okay, now that you have read the problem statement, now you would definitely like to look at how the problem statement, how the input goes. So say for example, the input can be taken in 2 ways. The first line contains n, and in this case all the integers are on the same line. Otherwise, in other problems that can be in different lines. So the first line contains n, that is the number of soldiers. The second line n consists of n integers, that is separated by space, which denotes the number of weapons the ith soldier is holding. Now what you need to output is whether the army is ready for battle or not ready. Now mind you, the output is going to be case sensitive. If it is written capital R and everything is capital, you have to print everything capital with the same formatting, unless specified otherwise. Now this is one of the things you have to be careful about in some problems. However, in this problem, that's not really a problem itself. So if let's suppose that n is equal to 10 to the power 10, then let's suppose in C++ you can't use the integer, and if it's 10 to the power 15, let's say, then you have to solve that problem in constant time. So it's pretty simple and straightforward here. Let's go through the next part. The next part is explanation, and I like to explain you with the help of OneNote. Okay. So now, after analyzing the problem statement, what you can observe is that the question itself is basically of two lines. Given a list of integers, we are asked to report whether the number of even integers is more than the number of odd integers or not. This is pretty much everything based on observation. Right, this is based on observation on problem statement. Now you can also if you want, your assumption can be like, let's say this thing, we are asked to report whether the number of even integers is more than the total numbers in the list. Okay, this is how you can interpret it as well. So if you are supposed, you can replace this statement with this one. It still means the same thing. So basically it's based on majority and minority. Okay, now I think this is enough to kind of explain you how the problem goes. And now let's take a look at two example cases. We are going to solve by hand first of all. So yeah, so in the first example, there are 4 integers in the list. Okay, 11, 12, 13 and 14. Now if you look at it, the first one is odd, so let's kind of try to make a program. So first of all, we are going to make a counter. Okay, let's take cnt equals 0. Now we treat through this thing over here. We go one by one each. First of all, 11 is 11 mod 2. So let's say if is 11 mod 2 is it 0, or say in simple language, is 11 divisible by 2? Well, it's not, so we'll not add something to the counter. Now let's go to the second element, that's 12. It's divisible by 2, so now we can add counter to 2 or counter to add 1, so we can say 1, right? And then if we go to the third one, now the counter is here is 1. Now if we go to the third one, it's not divisible by 2 again. Now this one is the last one, that is 14, is divisible by 2, so we can count now equals 2. Okay, now the total number of integers is 4, and it's given in the question itself that the number of soldiers should be strictly greater than the number of unlucky soldiers, right? However, in this case, this is not strictly greater, it's equal. So you have to keep that in mind, so it's not ready for battle. Is it? No, it's not ready for battle. Okay, now let's take a look at the second case. This has 3 elements, 2, 3 and 4. The first one is divisible by 2, so let's create counter equals 0. When it comes to this to the first one, it's going to add count equals 1 now. The second one, it's going to be the same, because now here we're going to take a second approach. Let's take our second approach. The second approach to this problem can be even counter and odd counter. Okay, now these are the two counters. So basically the first one is going to add to this one because this is the even number, right? Now the second one is odd, so it's going to go into the odd counter. Now the third one is again even, so it's going to go into the even counter. Now after iterating through the array, now we have 2 and odd as 1. Okay, now even is 2, odd is 1. So if now we can make a condition, if even is greater than odd, then ready for battle, right? Otherwise not ready. This is just pseudocode, okay? And this is pretty much all explanation you can take, and I've explained it with example cases as well. You can take more examples and try to do it yourself. Okay, now that I'm done with explanation, let's go to the solution. Okay, let's go to the solution now. Okay, so here it is. For Python, first I'm going to I'm going to do it in 2 different languages in 2 different ways as well. So in Python, I'm going to take the more than half. If the number of lucky soldiers is more than half of the total numbers in the list, then it's going to print ready for battle, otherwise not ready. Okay, let's go and create that. So N and A. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, now we have everything ready. Now there will be a counter that is initialized to 0 right now. If it's not visible to you, what I'll do is try to zoom in. Okay, I think it should be visible clearly now. And oops, I'm sorry for that. Yeah, and that's pretty much all it does, right? If cnt is greater than n by 2, print Now one thing that you would like to do right now is to match all these strings if it matches with this thing. Ready for battle and not ready. And there's no need of code, it does not need to print the code as well. Okay, so that is basically, now let me explain this code first of all. The first one is the number of integers in the list. The second one takes input as list from the same line, and it maps it to a list. This function maps it to a list, and then this is the counter for even values. This is counter for even value, and then for I in A, that means that for every item in A or for every element in A, it just checks if it is divisible by 2. If it is divisible by 2, it adds to the counter. Now if counter is greater than n by 2, here you go, there's one thing, I have used double slashes or double what I want to say, that means that it is like if n by 2, let's suppose n is 3, then n by 2 will return 1. Okay, it's like first it divides and then it uses the floor function. Now if it is if the counter is greater than half of the total number of integers in the list, it's going to print ready for battle, otherwise it's not ready. Okay, let's try to run this. Usually what you would like to do is basically test on all of these test cases to make sure that your problem is correct. I'll just run on one of them. By the way, this is CodeChef IDE. You can use your own IDE and submit the code over here. So you can match that it's not ready and not ready. Now one of the things that I want to talk over here is basically using a equal sign here, which is not applicable over here, because the problem statement clearly states that it should be strictly greater, as I've talked earlier. Okay, so don't do that over here. Let's try to submit it. In the meanwhile, let's have a look at the C++ code as well. I'm going to write it in C line here. By the way, in the meanwhile, like, we have got AC, or the correct answer code in with our Python code. Okay, now let's try to do this question in C++. Okay, so okay, using namespace std main. Okay, answer. So now let's go. Okay, so first of all, we are going to take n. Now we are going to create a vector, or you can create your array as well. Array of n and I equals 0. Right. Now we are going to take input, the array input as well. Now we can basically, you know what, we can skip this. Okay, there's no need to create this array, and you can kind of bypass it by directly checking. But now that I've created it, I'll just go with this one. Or maybe let's try to kind of optimize the solution even further and remove the vector as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to create an pointer equals 0, even pointer equals 0. Okay, those are just random names I've taken. And now if you want, like, now temp and then c and temp, if temp, so if temp is divisible by 2, then you have to add even pointer, right? Otherwise odd point. Okay, towards the end you want to check which is the largest one. So if even pointer is greater than odd pointer, so cout. Okay, I'm just going to leave that as like that only. I'm going to copy paste from the website itself so that there's no scope of error. Okay. And there is and now I'm going to change the problem. So this is one of the main errors usually people get, is that they basically forget to change the language and they submit C++ code in Python. Now I'd like to try this once again to make sure that my code is correct. Okay, so it's not ready, which is basically correct. I'm going to submit this code as well. Let's try if this is correct or not. Let's see. So basically let's now talk about it. So basically this is a more kind of optimized solution in terms of memory, because it does not create a vector or an array. Okay, now we have initialized odd pointer or odd counter and even count as 0. We are taking it as one, like the weapons one soldier has, and if it's divisible by 2 we add to the even pointer, otherwise we add to the odd pointer. Towards the end, once we have iterated over all the soldiers weapons, we now count if even the number of even so like the number of lucky soldiers is greater than the number of unlucky soldiers, then it prints ready for battle, otherwise not ready. Okay, and we have got correct answer in this as well. Now let's proceed to viewing the solution. You can take a screenshot, or this is how the solution should look written before I recorded this video. This is the code in C++. Okay, so now let's go through the common errors. So basically there are three places where you can go, and so like you can have errors. Number one is that you didn't read the problem statement carefully. So let's say you forget to read strictly greater and you assume that equal to greater. So then you'll obviously fall into error if you use a equal to sign. I'm just going to show you that as well. Okay, now I don't think it will be correct because it's already written that it should be strictly greater. In the meanwhile, now the other problem is that using case sensitive output. So as I said, if y is smaller than this, then it's going to be wrong, right? This one was also wrong, and this one, if there's like READ and small y, then it's also wrong. Since it's a machine and it's not a company like human that he or she will understand that it's the correct one. Now using equal sign instead of double equals over here, so if you use this thing, then you're kind of trying to like assign temp mod 2 equals 0. You're going to say temp mod 2 equals 0, but that's definitely not the case. Instead you want to check if temp mod 2 is equals to 0. These are the three places where you usually get errors in this problem as well as in other problems. Thank you for listening me and going through this tutorial.